I've been going to Second Mile for 15 years, which is also the same exact amount of time that I've known Jesus. I moved to Tucson for college at U of A to study pre-nursing in 2008. In my chemistry lab class, I met Nikki Wingate. Nikki was very different than any other friend and person that I'd met before. She really cared about me a lot, and she was very passionate about Jesus and Second Mile, and so it made me very curious about Jesus and who he is and why she was so into her religion, because most people that were into their religion didn't talk about it as much as she did. So she gave me my first Bible, and she brought me to Second Mile a couple of times. And on November 16, 2009, we got together to study for a human anatomy exam, and we just were grabbing dinner really quickly before. And I ended up just asking her questions about Jesus, and the questions just kept coming, and we ended up walking around the U of A mall for like 3 hours, and I asked her every question I could think of about Jesus, about God, about the Bible, and we eventually sat down at the fountain at Old Main, and she was like, okay, well, do you feel like you want to accept Jesus? And so I asked her, well, if I say yes, can I change my mind later? And she was like, well, yeah, but I don't think you will. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And she was like, well, we'll pray together. And so we both prayed. I prayed for the first time in my life. And I just remember walking back to my dorm that night, and I just felt like an overwhelming sense of peace and happiness. And I didn't understand the weight of what that moment meant at the time, but it really did mean so much to me. So much that I even posted about it on my Facebook, because that's what you did at that time, is you posted on Facebook just what was going on in your life. After I accepted Christ, she continued to pursue me and met with me every single week so we could go over just the basics of Christianity, like who the Holy Spirit is, who God is, who Jesus is. And in addition to Nikki investing in me, the entire church of Second Mile just poured into me. Nikki invited me to a community group, and I started going to that every week. I met with Chad and Angel one-on-one multiple times, and they were so gracious and kind, even if the questions I asked were probably silly to them as people who had known Jesus for a while. They were excited to meet with me, and I just felt so cared for by them and just by the church body. Honestly, I don't know if my faith would have lasted if I wasn't invested in by Nikki and adopted into the family of Second Mile. A year after accepting Christ, I met my now husband, Austin, and he also fell in love with the church. And when we talked about where do we want to live after we get married and what do we want to do after I graduate college, I was like, okay, well, we definitely are going to stay in Tucson. I don't think that's not an option for me. That's a non-negotiable. I need to stay in Tucson for Second Mile because I just loved the church, and honestly, Second Mile made me love Tucson. And around 2016, Austin was applying to become a firefighter, and he was having a really hard time getting a job. And so Austin really considered applying in Phoenix. We prayed about it. We talked to our community group leaders and our community group at the time, and we just felt like the answer was no, and just to keep waiting. And so we did, and a few months later, God provided Austin with a job in Tucson, and we were able to stay, which was such a gift to us. In 2018, Austin and I started co-leading community group with Nikki and Carter, which was such a gift to be able to lead a group with the person that helped me find Christ, and just be able to invite people into our home and to be able to love and serve our community and pour into other people as we had been poured into so much over the years. That was such a gift and a blessing to us to feel like we could be hospitable to those around us and welcome other people into our home. Second Mile has become my family, and I would not be the person I am today without Second Mile. I can't imagine what my life would have been without this church, without the people that have invested in me, that have poured into me, that have taught me so much about Jesus. I truly feel like the Christian I am today is because of this church. And I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to be able to get to know Christ in such a healthy environment with people who genuinely care about me as a person, who encourage me to use the giftings that I have, who enable me, who challenge me in really good ways to become more like Jesus. And I would be a completely different person without this church. And I'm so grateful that I'm still able to be a part of it even after 15 years. And I pray that I'll continue to be a part of this church for the rest of my life, because Second Miles changed me forever, and I love this family.